They should have said the poet. The poet. They should have said the poet. The poet.
Sending Poets.
This is Sending Poets, a podcast about ideas with the goal of understanding metaphorical truths within the beauty we find in the human experience. My name is John, with me is Bob and Tucker, and today we're going to continue our discussion of the book and movie Contact, as well as the corresponding genius of Carl Sagan. Bob, good morning. How are you doing?
Oh, good morning. I'm doing well. How are you, John?
I'm great. Yeah. Tucker, hello.
How you doing?
Great. Yeah. Great snow in Colorado Springs this weekend.
Yes. Yes.
Body is sore, but yeah. Anyway, so when we left off the first part last time, we kind of wrapped up to the point where the character S.R. Haddon comes in, and he is kind of the, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Elon Musk type of character. Well, in the 90s when Carl Sagan, in the 80s when Carl Sagan wrote this, well, I don't know, was Bill Gates wasn't even that kind of character. So
not yet.
did he have? Do you think was there a real life character that you think Sagan kind of pulled from, or do you think most of it is just what he kind of dreamed up? What do you guys think about that?
I don't remember a figure like that growing up, but I almost have to question whether that was his foresight at work again, where he's going with these tech companies and these people spearheading them. We're going to end up with somebody like that.
Yeah. And what I really liked in the book, this isn't in the movie, but in the book, it's described that, just like you said, Tucker, he's a tech genius. He invented this technology that everybody could have on their TV that recognized when commercials came on, and it would automatically lower the volume. And it was like a disruptive thing. It was like disrupting the industry, right? Because advertisers were like, this is going to cut into our profits or whatever, basically. But consumers were like, this is awesome. Like, this is the greatest invention of all time, right? That's kind of how it's described in the book. And so he, becomes wealthy basically because of that technology. I think in the movie, it's just
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
John, sorry, to speak to the disruptive nature of the character. I always envisioned him as like a Ross Perot.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And kind of like this billionaire maverick character, does his own thing, and he has no problem standing up and just being like "F you," like to change anything, like, right? Because that was the whole point of in the book. He essentially not bankrupted, but cost untold fortunes to the advertising companies, and he just pocketed a small percentage of that to himself. Right. So I thought that was an interesting take on, the disruptive characters that can have an oversized influence.
Yeah. Right. In the movie, that it doesn't really go into how exactly he became a wealthy, guy, but there's one quick line he says: in another life I was a bit of a engineering genius. He doesn't use the word, he doesn't describe himself as a genius, but he's like, I was quite a good engineer. He's kind of actually I think pretty humble about the way he says it. So you get some idea that it is like some tech
when he's
thing.
figuring out the code of
the primer.
transmission.
Yeah.
The primer.
Yeah, it's jumping ahead a bit, but I think it's appropriate. The line, I don't know if I wrote it down, but I think I could actually, maybe I did write it down somewhere, but he's talking about how there's a lot of people that would like to see him leave the earth because he's, just this disruptive thing is kind of described in the movie, that people are kind of fed up with him. Yeah, maybe taking their profits or whatever. But
well, there's a really interesting concept here. I think we could maybe break, since we're not in a race here. We could break on this concept, this little sub breakdown of technology as essentially a disruptive or deflationary tool. So anytime you invent something like, the automobile, you get rid of the buggy whip manufacturer, and the radio gets rid of the player piano and the sheet music manufacturer. And so as you have technological advances, it's always deflationary to somebody, to some sector, right? You are disrupting and taking away what was once somebody's job, like the South Park, my job, whatever. You got this
right.
this concept of this is your job, like it's like your thing, and I think it's a very this Haddon character, that's what he does over and over again, meaning to get to his position, he's introducing a technology that reduces somebody else's productivity, so to speak, in a way that he's advancing everything, but it does do that, does it not?
Yeah,
it does.
No,
Well, I mean, this goes back to the Luddites, which I just looked up the date. So that was 1811 through 16. But the original Luddites were, they destroy machinery in like cotton and wool mills because the machines were taking our jobs. And the Luddites never went away. They just evolved into, every generation has one now, where there's some new technology, and yeah, it's going to take jobs, but it creates jobs in other ways. It's like you can't. There's no stopping it. The cat's out of the bag, man.
Yeah.
Tech's just gonna keep teching, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And eventually, we're gonna have a point where, a lot of these physical labor jobs do go away, and they're done by robots. But you know what? Somebody's gonna have to repair the robots. Somebody's gonna have to.
Eventually it'll be other robots.
Yeah, that's true.
But the whole
let's
oil industry, is.
Sorry, John. Real quick. What about the tension of idiocracy, though? So when everything gets done for everybody, such that you lose the basic understanding of what is even happening, like you become domesticated and weak, and then you don't realize, electrolytes don't help the plants grow.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's why Idiocracy is such a great movie, because it's obviously, it's not like it's fortune telling, but it's kind of,
it's a trend.
It's like an excuse for everybody to really think about their own part in the whole story, because it's funny, it's a comedy, right? I mean, the movie isn't, it's in the genre of comedy, right?
You mean it's not horror?
Satire, yeah. Yeah, right. But it is like, I think fair to say most people can get some benefit of like really thinking about it realistically. Like, do I think I would get that to that point, I or my family, whatever, if I have kids, right? Like, to get to a point where I would be like, oh yeah, electrolytes are good for the body, it must be good for everything, and I'll just water crops with electrolytes, and then when they die, like, I'll just be like, well, it certainly isn't the electrolytes, because electrolytes are good, like, what I mean? Like,
John,
really,
the point is not that the people are thinking that. The point is, it's the advertising. The advertising sucks them all into this one belief, and the advertising grows all encompassing because it's so fucking good. It just makes more and more profit because you're buying more and more whatever the shit was. I can't remember what it was called. What was the stuff called? The liquid, whatever, whammo or blammo or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the point is that these people are just parroting what they're told because they're automatons, they're NPCs, they're domesticated cattle, and it's because robots repair robots. And ain't nobody got to repair that other robot. It's just maybe one guy has to repair that robot. There's this very famous quote in this movie, when the guy goes, he's like, I'm sick. I got to go see a doctor. He goes to see the doctor, and the guy's like, you're tarded. He's like, it's okay. My sister, she's tarded too. She's a pilot now. Okay. You know what I'm saying? Dude, like, it's going to be like that, John, in that the trajectory is that when you don't need to do anything, you lose your fitness. It's just the way it is. And so imagine taking up all the lower level things. By lower level, I mean, imagine there's a 105 IQ LLM that has, corporeal capabilities. We're fucked. We're fucked, dude. There's so many people that are below that line that we're fucked. So in a long-term sense, and not in our lifetime, but in a long-term sense, something's got to give. Like, there's going to what I was trying to say was that this time period is so rapidly advancing. We don't have an evolutionary answer to it. And I'm scared that something like, if we ever were to be attacked by AI, doing air quotes, it would be like a 250-year trajectory to do idiocracy. Okay, that's how you win. It's not the Matrix, unfortunately, where you get into a fighting war and they scorch the skies and you become batteries in a pod. It's literally just going to be idiocracy. That's the easiest way. It's just porn, fast food,
Or Wally.
and no jobs.
Oh yeah, Wally. Yeah, Wally's a good.
Just everybody cruising around on their little hoverboards, eating food all day.
Correct. Trash everywhere. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
it just ends up being like, because what'll happen is, and we all know this, the system eventually does break down because the robot that fixes the robot, eventually it fucking breaks. Eventually. And then you're fucked when nobody knows how to fix that robot, right? Because then up the chain it goes.
Yeah.
I
hopeful.
try to be positive that
Right.
there will always be enough of us who choose to continually educate that there will always be a segment of humanity that's resisting, that's not going to be turned into cattle willingly.
Yeah, that keeps like those
those get
fundamental
put in zoos,
skills
by
going.
The way. Those get put in zoos. That's what happens. I'm not trying to be cynical, but the holdouts will be turned upon as an example of what not to do. Anyway, I think
well, it's interesting you said, yeah, because you said, sorry, I feel like this kind of popped in my head. I don't know, maybe it's something, maybe it isn't, but because you said like zoos, but I was thinking like museums. Like here we have people that are manually plowing the earth and manually
Brave New World. It's the reservation. This is exactly it. So Brave New World, there's a reservation. You guys remember this?
It's a book. Is it a movie also? Right? What is?
It is
I know
both. Yeah, it's both. But it's a dystopian, futuristic, and to get to the point of it, there's a place like a reservation they call it, where they have savages. Yeah, it's savages. So the savages are kept, and by the way, savages are people like us, like living a life where they have sex. And they have, they make their own meals and they get dirty and like they don't use the hyper euphoric chemicals to and all this crazy shit. They don't have psychological programming and all this technological advantage. But anyway, the point of the whole book is this guy goes on a vacation to the reservation to meet with these savages, and it changes everything because he comes from the place where everything is dialed in. Everything is taken care of. Everything is planned and everything is hyper controlled, like modern, like imagine tech to the nth degree. Everything is completely controllable, but there's no like human variation. And so that's what the savages have. They have the raw human variation. So that is this tension. I just find it fascinating that Sagan puts this character in this position of saving everybody through his concept that his point of view of the world ends up saving everybody, does it not? By building the backup, deciphering the thing, building
Yeah.
the backup,
Right.
selecting her for funding. Did that happen in the book, by the way? I can't recall. Did they do the thing where he's got the video closed caption and she gets pissed at the last meeting where she's trying to get funding for their program after they get dumped by Drummond? You remember what I'm talking about? She's like,
Yes.
for the money.
I don't remember if that's in the book. Do you?
I don't
Tucker?
recall that from the book. No.
Yeah.
Powerful
Right.
fucking scene. Fucking scene.
Totally.
Foreshadowing this guy, by the way. He's watching.
Yep.
He's
She looks up
fucking-
at the camera too, and because he calls, like
Yeah.
she's, she like you said, she kind of just like loses her restraint or whatever, because they're like they say something about man, how do they describe it? It's just it's a crazy idea. Yeah. And she's like, you know what else is a crazy idea? Let's like try to make a plane, like flying apparatus. And she kind of goes through like all these things are crazy. Like this is just the next thing. But in that moment, right, they have a quick shot of the camera because maybe she looks at it when she comes in, but then he calls, Haddon calls the guy.
I don't think she notices it until after. My take is she doesn't notice it. She looks for the camera once she realizes somebody's
she looks at it at some point. Yeah. And the point is the phone call is all that's needed because he just hangs up and the guy just says like, you have your money. She says, thank you. But then she does look up at the camera and says, thank you to the camera. And then, it pays off. This is good because it kind of ties in the quote I was going to say. It pays off later. We'll jump ahead, but we'll jump back into the actual storyline. But the moment when Haddon is, explaining he kind of figured out the primer, he's talking about people would like to see him leave this earth, and he's like, I'll grant them their wish soon enough. He's like, but I wanted to kind of do one final gesture of goodwill, and the words he says is to the people of this little planet that have given, and he catches himself and he goes, from whom I have taken so much. I thought that was really cool because I felt like it implied he still has this like humanity, like he recognizes what he's done isn't so much like he's taken stuff from people in a way. It wasn't just like everybody's giving him all this money. He did something disruptive.
It's the concept of the planting trees and eating trees, meaning he understands his whole life is predicated on generation upon generation upon generation of people planting more trees than they ate. He understands his position. Even he gave so much to the world, he is still beholden to everything else. I mean, there's so like language, clothes, society, laws, medicine, math. I mean, there's nothing that this is the Cartesian problem, right? Nothing is primary knowledge. We are given everything, almost everything. There's nothing you could say, I did this firsthand. I know of this thing firsthand. Almost nothing. Everything was shown to you first. Everything was given to you. Everything is a path from the past to the present, and on it goes. And he recognized that, meaning that the Haddon character recognized the importance of the culture itself that he was planted into, like the fertile soil that he grew from. He was able to give back, obviously, but even he, the one who gave back more than any other single human, let's just say at the time, he realized his importance relative to all he was given.
I find it interesting. Let's take the big four billionaires of the U.S. right now. You've got Bill Gates, you've got Zuckerberg, you've got Bezos, you've got Musk. Only one of those people seems to have any notion of that, and that's Bill Gates, who actually has given huge portions of his wealth to various organizations and tried to spread that out. And the weird thing is he's the one who has the most conspiracy theories about him being like just the boogeyman, like the other three, while not, revered necessarily, don't give anything back, and people just kind of leave them alone, and it's just odd to me, Like,
it is kind of odd. Yeah, it's a similar parallel with like J.K. Rowling. At one point she was the richest woman in the world, and gave away so much money that she lost that title. Seemed pretty clear like she didn't care about that. It was just I got all this money. I don't need it. I'm just going to give it away.
I think the lady who became the richest one was Bezos's ex. And
Yep.
then she gave away and has continued to give away a tremendous amount.
Yeah.
Right when she
Still-
was divorced, she took like 40 billion, 50 billion, something like that.
Yeah. Now it's interesting though to go back to like let's say Jeff Bezos, for example. Maybe he's not giving money away like Bill Gates has given money away, or like his ex-wife gave away, and whatever. He is investing in space exploration. However, right? Do you think in a way that is maybe his way of kind of giving?
No,
Maybe not back.
with these guys. I think the mentality of Musk and Bezos doing this is they want to form a breakaway civilization. And they want to leave
Well, that's
the
what I
peon.
mean.
They want to leave the peons behind, though. It's not going to be a welcome for all. We're going to space. It's going to be we're going to now take the best and brightest away from Earth and form our own civilization that you aren't invited to. That's
Wow,
where I see it going.
I hadn't thought of that angle. That's not very cheerful, but that doesn't mean it's not true. But
there's a certain, like I said, I don't think you can amass that amount of wealth and still be a down to earth person who's got everybody's best interest in heart. Because I think if you had everybody's best interest in heart, you would have been spreading that wealth out into programs all along.
Would you say then Bill Gates maybe is more
absolutely
towards that than?
I still think he's problematic in his own ways, but I think he's at least self-aware enough that he feels obligated to help. I don't think those other guys do. Like there was just a recent story about Elon Musk where he made this huge donation to charity, but it was one of his own charities. So he got the tax credit for donating that money to charity, but the wealth never left his fingers. He's still got his control of it, and I think there's a lot of that going on even with people who don't have that much money. It's a big club and we're not invited. It's like we pay our taxes. Once you reach a certain level of wealth, there are advisors who go, this is how you move your money around so that you're not taxed on it. The whole art scene is one of them. It's like you buy this painting and then you have it appraised and they go, it's worth this much money. And then you can donate that piece of art to the museum and take a tax credit for that. A painting's not worth $100 million. It just isn't. It's paint on fabric. But they're able to, as being part of that club, there's a whole system in place to protect that money. And I think there's dark times ahead allowing, 5% of the population to control as much of the wealth of the planet as they do.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about that for sure. I think I was going to say like it seems like it's a thin line then between that and the parts of what they're doing that actually is good for the species, to.
Can I just say one thing real quick?
Of course.
Pharaohs built pyramids. I mean, this shit has gone on for fucking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. My brother, it's just built in. It's like saying dogs should not bark. It's like, well, if you want a quiet house, you don't want your dog to bark.
Yeah.
Fucking dogs, they do bark.
Yeah.
Let me throw something in here. I want to tie it back to Sagan real quick in that I was inspired by what Tucker was saying to envision a counterfactual to someone doing a quote unquote great thing without donating, which I'm not disagreeing with. I'm just playing a game here. And what I realized was, what if from mathematics, say from the early 19 teens, we saw E equals MC squared, and we realized an atomic weapon was feasible. But what if it wasn't the we I'm talking about? What if it was like the Japanese? What if the Japanese didn't go after Pearl Harbor with dive bomb attack? What if they dropped an atomic weapon? What if? So what I'm getting at is like the Haddon character, right? This guy, let's just get real cynical and just say this guy is not donating to anybody and he's making fake charities so he can game the system and etc. Let's just say. But what if he's the one who unlocks the primer that allows for the discovery of communication to build technology from a alien civilization that gets the whole fucking thing going? Meaning, I think Sagan's point was there's going to be a time where the best of us are so disruptive, the best of us meaning the ones that are going to have this outsized impact at a moment of criticality to humanity. Who knows what it is? It's the atomic bomb, dude. What if we, quote unquote, again, didn't come up with the atomic bomb? Like, do you know how fucked up everything would be after that? I mean, I just can't even begin to do the what ifs. I just don't even want to. But I'm saying, like, there could be a moment of critical, we go left, we go right. And if you don't have one of these guys on the team, it might never work out. So I think Sagan's point is, however they got there, meaning the guy to be at the right place at the right time to come up with this thing, they are crucial to the system of progress.
Yeah, and I mean, okay, there's the whole thing going around where, people talk, well, there's all these billionaires and not a single one has chosen to become Batman, which, okay, that's true. But
that's
none of them have
tweet.
decided to become Dr. Evil either and build a laser on the moon,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess we're in the sweet spot, maybe.
Yeah,
where
it really is. Yeah, go finish. Yeah, finish.
If let's say Elon Musk really wanted to, let's say, take down the U.S. government, I'm sure he could build an intelligence agency capable of gathering enough dirt on all our politicians to just bring it down, and he hasn't, and that's probably good. But
yeah,
that doesn't mean he's gonna become Batman either. I don't see that happening.
Yeah, it is really deep. Back to Sagan's the genius here. Well, and I guess I'm gonna drift into the movie more than the book, I think. But the way you were explaining that, Bob, in the movie, how many people experience the experience? One person. It all
one crew.
One person goes and has this experience, and then by all expectations after that, it's not like the next person's going to go the next day. Like small moves, right? It's all about like, and it's been done this way for billions of years. But that one of the closing scenes there when she's coming out of the hearing, all those people are with signs and stuff are like, it's like they're getting the experience vicariously. Even though they didn't go on that experience, they're choosing to believe her. That it's not some hoax. It really happened. I think there's something to be said about.
I think that's a huge part of the book. I think the movie, which is different than the book. That's
right.
A huge. Let me, if I may, let's put a pin in that and go right next on that. But I had another tie-in maybe to close out the concept of Sagan introducing this, quote unquote bad guy into the mix, but he's, pertinent to the technological success of the mission. There's this theory, or not a theory, an old saying. I can't remember where this was from. I think it was Baghdad. They had an open air book market, and the book market, you can't put books out and take them in every night. There's fucking thousands and thousands and thousands of books. So a tourist comes up and says, how can you leave these out overnight? How come they don't get stolen? And the book broker, the dealer guy, he says, well, people who read books don't steal. People who steal don't read books.
Where did you hear that from? Where did you get that from?
Oh man, I can't even recall the source.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
I haven't. I love it.
Yeah,
that's great.
The concept of we are saved. Back to the Tucker's point, there's no Dr. Doom or whatever to counter the no Batman. We are saved by the fact of the effort it takes to become technologically superior. The amount of willpower and hard work and luck of genetics, meaning your intellectual capacity and your circumstances, the amount of mix that has to go in seems like never does it equal someone wanting to blow up the world. It just never works that way. All the fuckers that want to blow up the world, thankfully, they don't read books. They're just not. They're just not capable of doing it. They literally are just incapable. I mean, you see small little, 9/11 and the federal building in Oklahoma, right? You get all those things, but rarely do you see a single person come up with an atomic bomb and set it off in a populated area. It just doesn't seem like it happens.
Yeah, I'll take that. That's an optimistic nugget to move on with, because sometimes there is some I'm an emotional person. Sometimes like some of the doomsday stuff, I'm just like, oh man, that was just bumming me the fuck out.
Well, I think this is the reality of the thing. Is it's a possibility, but why doesn't it happen? It's a real important philosophical question, and it's something I think in the art that Sagan made, he's playing with the tension. He's playing with this, going back to Brave New World and having this thing where I highly recommend Brave New World, by the way, is this concept of having a society looking down on a savage and not understanding that if you had a choice of living in both, you quite possibly would want to live as the savage lives, meaning that it feels better. It's just a more, for whatever reason, maybe because the future could be a, dystopian idiocracy, hellscape, in which case, I would love to live my life as if I'm camping. That would be amazing compared to, the dystopian futuristic kind of thing.
Yeah. I kind of wish he would have, maybe not even a whole book, but done as a thought experiment a little more with the post-contact era, because the way things went down in the book, it would have had huge implications. They spent $500 billion building this machine that did nothing. That's kind of the official story. It didn't do anything. It didn't work. There's gonna be fallout from that, like globally, like. And I
excellent point, by the way. Excellent point.
That's why I thought it was so good that they showed all these people that were choosing to believe her and and as a
but it rings.
You didn't really see.
Brings back to what the alien said at the end. Her dad, as the alien, which is. To like you said, John, what do we do now? It's like, don't call us, we'll call you. And this has been done for billions of years.
Right.
I think that's the whole point is what he's trying to do is ring the bell. Yeah. And then you have to wait for everybody to hear it and act, you can't do anything. You can't rush it after that. It just has to be, you rung the bell. Now what happens? It's going to be craziness,
Yeah. It's really interesting.
And it couldn't be done the same way in the movie, granted, but I really like in the book, the conversation she has with the alien about, why us? And, because despite all the faults, there is beauty among your species, the art, the music, the
dreaming.
There is enough there to be worth continuing, for all our ills and all the horrible things we've done to each other over the years. We've still managed to maintain that spark somehow,
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that art continued after the horrors of the Holocaust, that says something. Like that, the things that happened, that could have broken us as a species, but it didn't.
The line, I was gonna say the line in the book, it's a couple lines, but he says, the alien, like, I know you think nobody has anything to learn from you because you're technologically so backward, but there are other merits to a civilization. And she says, what merits? He's like, oh, music, loving kindness. He says, I like that word, which, by the way, well done, Sagan. I hadn't seen that as a single word. It's one word, loving kindness. But then he goes, dreams. He says, humans are very good at dreaming, although you never know it from your television. Footnote, I want to say something about that. But then he says there are cultures all over the galaxy that trade dreams
That'd
Oh,
be
fucking
amazing.
love it, dude. So good, so good. But yeah, so real quick, I was gonna say that we chuckled at that, although you never know it from your television. Again, one of these moments that just makes me wish Carl Sagan was still alive, or if there's parallel universe, because like, oh man, I just think like, he's saying television, but just the art of storytelling in my lifetime has gotten so good, you guys. The whole art of it. And I would just love to know what a modern day Carl Sagan would think about some of these, you know, the television, in quotes today compared to what it was when he wrote this in the 80s. It's such an interesting quote. Humans are really great at dreaming, although you never know it from your
Well,
from your television.
let me touch on
Wow.
this real quick, John, and I think it's a really good. You homed in on a really interesting point here, but just to get to the not the quality of the writing, but the medium itself. Let me just speak to that because I think that's what
Yeah.
it's saying, trying to get at.
Sure.
It's a replacement of the dream state in day form. I mean this very specifically in that my point of view is daydreaming is the thing, not dreaming, daydreaming. This connection point in conscious awareness where you are interacting with your own
Yeah.
emergent visualization. What I'm getting at,
Imagination.
and what happens is it's like augmented reality. It overlays what you normally see. If I ask you to visualize an apple in your hand right now, but don't do it. But imagine if you did that. I could ask you what color is the apple and what is it, does it have a leaf or a stem or is it all these things? And you would actually see these things and you could describe them. And I'm saying TV is like a spotlight in your eyes, metaphorically speaking, and you are blinded to the lack of your own daydreams. This is my point of the technology itself. I don't care how good the storytelling is, not to discount what you're saying. I 100% agree. Storytelling is the thing, I'm right there. But as a technique, this thing has it's almost like the algorithm where it can learn you. And it was an unintended consequence, meaning Facebook didn't intend to develop like this addictive scrolling, we learn what makes you pop off and interact. They just wanted ads. They just wanted engagement. They didn't, right? You know what I'm saying? Like it was an unintended consequence that the most engagement is by pissing you off.
Right.
So
Well,
the TV is like a literal interference of the ability to connect because you're passively watching. You can't possibly engage with this thing. It's like history. It's already done. You're just watching it, and so you're giving up your imagination, your daydreams for somebody else's, and it's very pleasant. It's nice, but it's like being in a wheelchair because it's convenient to sit and roll. Like if your legs are healthy, you're just hurting yourself, even though it might be inconvenient to stand in line instead of sit or whatever. I guarantee, the fitness level is higher for those who retain their mobility, even though it's inconvenient at times.
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I think
it's
attention comes into play there, though, because for like, yes, the TV is a spotlight, and I can sit down and I can watch an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which will have no beneficial impact on your life at all. But you could also sit down and watch Fantastic Fungi. Something that will affect the way you think and dream afterwards.
My point is not that you can't have knowledge. It's that you are not using your imagination. It might prime your imagination. I think that's your point, right? It does prime your imagination. But what if it's the difference between like Sagan is coming out. Let me contrast. Well, not let me compare Sagan with Frank Zappa, which is what I always thought when I read this quote about the aliens talking about TV. I don't know if you guys remember this. Frank Zappa did, I don't know if it's a photo shoot or something, where there's like a toilet upstairs and a nozzle that comes down and then it connects to the back of the TV downstairs. And it's literally like an art piece in his house. So he had a commode sitting upstairs on this balcony. Google images by Frank Zappa, toilet TV connection or whatever. And it literally is showing in his house him displaying this thing where upstairs you poop and downstairs you watch. It's obviously art, but I think that was the point, is that the technology itself is dangerous if you consume it to, the nth degree or whatever.
Well, and that's yeah, I agree. You know, the whole TV medium, it's a menu, and on that menu there's a plate of vegetables, but then there's a whole bunch of fast food, and the fast food gets vastly more advertising money than that plate of vegetables.
Well
And so
put.
that's what gets
Yeah.
consumed largely is
Yes, sir. That's it.
the junk food, and you
Wow.
have to go out of your way to look for those vegetables and consume something that's beneficial, or
Yeah.
it actually expands your mind a little bit.
Wow, I fucking love how that just transpired, you guys. The whole like journey of that conversation was like so enriching to me. Thank you.
It was
I
like
love it, dude.
sharpening. It was like sharpening a razor sharp knife to even like scalpel proportions, and to come up with such a beautiful metaphor to cap it off with, Tucker. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Wow.
That's what this is about, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Hell
sir.
yeah. The
Yes, I love
poetry,
it.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck
It
yeah,
is.
dude. Oh man. All right. So yeah. So maybe we can try to kind of get back to the storyline here. But we all said like, yeah, this Haddon character would be just fodder for awesome conversation. So you're welcome, everyone who might be listening. And I'm sure there's so much more to say about it too. But so getting back to the movie. So when this Haddon character comes in, he's saving the research because they were shut down in the Arecibo facility, and then this is where the VLA, the Very Large Array in New Mexico, comes in because Haddon is giving him the money to do this. So the piece that I thought was great, especially in the book, is where the signal comes in, obviously. Well, I think in the movie it says like 4 years later. so it's not like it's just right away, right? I think it's 4 years go by.
Yes.
But the way the signal comes in, it's so well done. So if I in the book, I think there's a whole chapter, and it's like from the signal's perspective, as it's like from like the radio waves, like it's in the do I remember that right? It's like in the perspective of the radio waves, like coming through the atmosphere,
Yeah.
down towards the surface of the earth and stuff. It's really, really cool. The movie doesn't quite do that, but obviously with the movie you get the actual sound of the signal that you
John,
just
what
have to
about
use.
John? What about the opening scene as a translation of that moment, going in reverse, meaning coming out? That's kind of what they played as the opening.
And I believe I didn't frame by frame compare this, but I believe it's the same shot of the Earth from space
The Very
as the
Large Array,
beginning.
you think? Like
No. Sorry, when the signal, like in the movie, when you first hear the signal, there's a shot of the Earth from space, and I think it's that same shot that the movie starts with.
yes.
I think it's that same exact shot. But yeah, and I don't think missed opportunity, or again because of the technology. The movie doesn't go where the opening scene is going backwards, or at least out, right? When the signal comes in, it's not like you don't see the camera doesn't like zoom in right to the earth and get closer to the earth. And again, probably just wouldn't have looked good technology wise. These days you could totally do that. You can do that yourself with Google Earth on your phone. You can see zooming into like a single spot on the planet. Really, really cool, right? But I love the sound of the signal in the movie. It's kind of ominous. It's kind of, I don't remember if the book described it that way. I think it described the sound, but this part of the book was so great too when it's actually starting to happen.
They captured it was unnatural, meaning it's just sounded like it was made by something.
Yeah.
As opposed to some sort of a natural sound, even without all the processing or anything. That original sound, I thought they captured it well. That it was demonstrably, like in the movie, she's listening. She literally has headphones on, right? She's out on her vehicle on the hood of the car and just listening while she's staring up at the stars and tuning through it, which is such a romantic concept. Especially with what's that character name? The gentleman who's blind and has the super
Kent.
hearing.
Yeah.
Kent. Yeah.
Yeah. Kent.
So so yeah, like this whole thing about doing it the old way, right? Not using technology, meaning not using a computer, because the computer picks up
Yeah.
on these anyway. Like that's what they told her. Like, why do you listen? The
Right.
computer scans all these. The computer's going to find it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
like,
And Kent says that. I think when he first meets her, I think he says, I think it's great that you still listen. Yeah. So all that's like really, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about, like the skills, not giving everything over to the automation, right? And retaining some manual
correct.
skills, it's all fits in.
Fitness of being the primary one, like not just relying upon the
Yeah.
computer
Wow.
telling you this is.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing,
pretty cool.
the beauty of the concept, in my opinion, is that you're trying to find that novelty that is unexplainable by any kind of technology. Like the novelty. So what we've all agreed upon is, yes, you could have 105 IQ LLMs or whatever, some kind of artificial intelligence and et cetera. But what does it do in a new experience? Like, can it really, can it make Mozart? Can it do that? Can it do Newton? Right? Can it physically figure these things out?
Right.
And so I think that's a beautiful crystallization of the human component still being key in the discovery of these things.
Yeah. A couple other things I wanted to say about this part in the book and the movie. In the book, I didn't know what Janskis were, and I want to try to recreate this moment when I was reading it, that I laughed out loud because I was sure that Carl Sagan didn't make something up, but the words were it's as it's very intense. It's very intense in the movie and the book. We're like, this is a signal. Well, we got to make sure it's not just another thing that we have captured like before. We got to make sure, is it actually novel, brand new thing, right? Very intense. And there's a part in the book where she's like, what's the absolute intensity? Holy smoke, that's hundreds of Janskis. I was like, the fuck is a Jansky? So I looked it up, and yeah, it's like it's a real thing. Did you guys know what Janskis were?
Not until I read your notes. I looked at
No, I think I just assumed it was a unit of measuring signal strength.
Yes, exactly. Wikipedia just said it's a unit of spectral flux density. Okay, so a whole bunch more to dig into, and that's where it's like, oh man, this isn't my forte at all. Like I can read the formulas. I mean, I can see that they're formulas, but I'd have to spend a lot of time really trying to figure. But anyway, so it was a fun moment. And then in the movie, again, sometimes I pick out things that in the long run, it's like, I'm the only one that cares about this shit. It's interesting to me, but in the movie, somebody else says, it's one of the other characters. He says, "Got it. Reading over 100." I think he says Janskis, but the subtitles, and this is the point that like nobody cares about this but me. They typoed the subtitle. It says Jaskis. They didn't spell Jansky. So
well, it's like a proper
trivia
noun.
for
it's
you.
Based on a proper noun, which I think the most of the what do you want to call it? The automated closed caption. I think a lot of that stuff is probably automated at this point. I think those have trouble with proper nouns.
My experience, because I've been doing subtitles for years and years now, and most of it's pretty good. So this one, again, it stuck out to me. Why? I don't know, because that's just the kind of guy I am.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to me, but I wanted to mention that.
I had a conversation with somebody on Reddit the last week or two about how they've started using AI to read audiobooks, but the ones that are out, it's not very good yet.
Oh yeah.
And for me, like, I have fallen in love with narrators, and there are narrators that I follow, and I will listen to the books that they narrate because I appreciate what they bring to it.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be one of those cases with AI where, the cream of the crop is still going to be around. The A-list actors, the A-list authors, they're still going to be around, but AI is going to replace the extras. AI is going to replace,
which
a lot of that.
I mean, you could, beautiful point. I love it. I totally agree. Like AI is the narration capability of AI is far away from the skill level that actual human beings can deliver on. I work in telecom. Like I can speak to some of that from my personal experience. Putting words in and having a robot say it, like the inflection. I mean, it's all of that to say, there are some deep fake stuff that's pretty good, but the general, what you're talking about, the general, just like, here, say this without me having to program
You
certain
guys
things,
remember?
just do it on your
You
own.
remember
It's not there yet at all.
You remember the movie Her?
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
That's going to be dangerous. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be. It's going to take time for the technology to catch up to the art, the sci-fi of it, but it will happen.
Yeah.
And so it's going to eliminate, large port. Here's the kick in the pants. It's not just that it's like the buggy whip manufacturer going out of business because of Ford. Here's the problem. It's that the people who are put out of business were used to train the models that are now putting them out of business.
Yeah.
And so there's something inherently, and by the way, there's going to be some kind of like incestuous looping here at some point where they're going to use synthetic data or previously generated data for their next round of training. And it's going to come to a point where if you do not have a large enough percentage, to Tucker's point, of people, or John, sorry, of people who are still, maybe it's Tucker, people who are still making the creations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's still a certain number of talented A-lists that are still better than the state of the art. And let's just say that will never be touched. Let's just say, is that enough of a slice that allows us to continuously make progress training the AIs that take up the other 90%?
It is, but here's the other point I had in the whole audiobook conversation is the humans aren't even to a level yet that is 100% accurate. Like there's in every book there's a word mispronounced by these professionals, like the one I'm listening to right now, and it's come up probably twice in every book, and I'm on the fourth book. He likes the word dour, to describe somebody's mood. Well, the narrator pronounces it doer every time, and every time it happens, it makes me twitch. And I think that actually is a maybe a U.S. versus Europe pronunciation thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
So how do you train an AI with language laws that are as complex and nuanced as they are? I mean, we don't even speak the same in our own country. Like there's regional dialects.
Right.
I don't know that AI anytime soon is ever going to be able to grasp all that. It's very complex.
It needs intervention. I think it's possible, but just you can put it in two groups. It's like when we talk about AI, if you're talking about like the truly generative stuff where you just let it do its own thing, that's where I think like it's a long ways off. You can get involved and you can massage and tweak, and that's where like you get the deep fakes with like Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Joe Biden, playing or talking about Legend of Zelda games and ranking them in a tier maker. I think we talked about that last time. Where that shit,
Bill Clinton doing we have made contact with aliens speech or whatever in the movie itself, right? That was like a very early version of this integration of deceptively real fiction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just take the phrase "bless your heart," right?
No.
That can mean several different things, all based on the inflection and how it's said. Like how that's going to be hard to teach an AI that, because it's just looking at those words as data. It's
we did ask ChatGPT a while ago if it understood what sarcasm was, and it was pretty interesting, to read its responses, and because it's a fascinating thing about language in general. This idea that I'm going to say X and what I actually mean is the opposite of that. You know what I mean?
I
Really
saw
kind of
one
a-
the other day. Somebody asked Chat GPT, and I forget the exact prompt, but it was basically like, if you wanted to take over as leader of civilization without people catching on to that being your end goal, how would you do it? And it listed like a 12-step process, and it's like,
yeah.
oh, that's basically our current system being run by humans. Like,
Yeah.
maybe learn some things a little too quickly, but yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting times, man.
Yeah.
I think our generation, hopefully civilization continues, and I think if it does, 500 years from now, I think this will just be the unprecedented times era.
Yeah. Wow. So a couple other things real quick, and then we'll get on to one of the coolest parts in the whole story. But there was the scene in the movie, while the signal is first revealed and you're hearing it. It's kind of transposed with the interview Larry King is doing with the Palmer Joss character. There's some really like interesting stuff he says. He's talking about technology and stuff, and it reminded me a lot of in The Cable Guy, Jim Carrey. You guys know what I'm talking about?
I saw it so long ago, but yeah, I saw it.
Jim
I
Carrey's
think
character in
there's also
Cable.
Matthew Broderick, I want to say.
Yeah, right. He's in that. Yep. And Jim Carrey's character, he's all in on technology. It's like the future is now. There's this scene where he's standing on a huge satellite dish, and he's talking about like, the future is now. Like you can like shop from your home. And this was in the 90s, but he's like, you can like do your shopping from home while you're playing video games with a friend in Vietnam or whatever. And it's like that wasn't happening like that in the 90s. And it's really interesting how prophetic it is, because yeah, like a lot of people can just do all their grocery shopping with thumb gestures, and it'll, they'll summon their groceries to them. Someone will drive to their house and drop them off, and so Palmer Joss's interview with Larry King in the movie, it's similar. Palmer Joss is kind of taking it from the other angle of like, we're more isolated than ever. And again, prophetic, Sagan, pre-COVID, right? What would Sagan think about the world now after the whole COVID thing, where we did sort of all consciously agree that like isolation was the most important thing. I say we all, obviously not all of humans, but it was a global phenomenon, right? Like a lot of it seems like the majority of people for a while on the planet were like, yep, staying away from people is really important right now, and then just transitioning back into, prior to that, a huge impact, right, for the whole of our species. And so anyway, Joss is talking about, in terms of technology, we're more separated than ever. And he's kind of making this point, are we really better off because of technology? It's really like interesting way that they did that in the movie, because while that's happening, it's like now this is the signal coming in, at this point. I just thought it was really brilliant, like editing. And I don't think the book didn't quite have something quite like that. It really focused on just the signal coming in.
I think they were compressing maybe a couple different parts of the book, like overlaying those, because there was some differential in the character development of this guy, right? I mean, in the book, but I think there were scenes where they tried to develop him separate from like Ellie's development or whatever, right? So maybe playing those both at once. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So just really, really interesting, thought-provoking stuff. And then as people are showing up at the VLA now, Drumlin and James Woods' character is introduced. He's sort of like a mean son of a bitch kind of a character, I think. But there's a
also
senator.
Prophetic in its own way.
Yeah, right. Right.
If you followed his Twitter account in the last couple of years.
Yeah. So there's a senator, though. I like this line too. There's a senator there And this is by the time they've realized it's prime numbers that are, the signal was like to get the attention, right? And then it kind of stops for a bit. And they're like, oh fuck. But then it starts again, and it's pulses of prime numbers, right? Really, really, really cool. And so the senator goes, why don't they just speak English? And then Ellie goes, maybe because 70% of the planet speaks other languages. Mathematics is the only truly universal language.
Yep.
This is so cool, by the way, because they really get deep. Sagan gets deep in the book, right, about unifying the data collection around the world. It's physically impossible for the United States on its own to collect this signal. Meaning the planet is spinning, and you can only see the signal side of the signal when you're facing the signal, and the planet blocks it when you're not. And so it was a unifying event in the book,
exactly, and the movie, right? Because the whole thing is.
Yeah, and that she mentions you can't. She's alluding to the fact you can't do it alone, right? They're talking about mathematics as the universal language, which is also true. But you can't even collect the signal without the help of all the other countries around the globe.
Yeah, exactly. And this James Woods character kind of introduces the sort of. I kind of want to use like the word paranoia, but he's like, maybe you could have consulted us first, and then to the character Drumlin's credit, he says, no, dude, just what you said, Bob. It's like there's only so much time when Vega, because they realize it's coming from the star Vega, is in the sky. If she hadn't have acted to get this, I think it's a place in Australia. That she goes to first or whatever, at least in the movie, we could have lost valuable data. Like we needed that again, like
because you didn't.
We don't have to.
You didn't know it was going to repeat over and over again. 100%.
Yeah,
so that's right.
That's really good.
I apologize. It was brought up it was fully brought up in the movie. But here's what I'm trying to get at, though, and we've talked about this in the past, just in general, how impactful Sagan's concept is of unifying the world, not through a thread, because like all the other standard, bring the world together tropes are usually like alien attack.
Exactly.
What I'm saying? Like this was such an interesting shift of the paradigm to make it like an opportunity that unites us, not a threat.
Right. It's one of the things I think that my wife, I got her to watch it with me. I don't think she was like, oh my God, this is my favorite movie ever, but she was surprised at how stereotypically sci-fi it was. And I think that's one of the reasons, because it's just this sort of like maybe arbitrary benign thing. There's no reason to assume that it's like a threat. It's definitely not like Independence Day. There's this UFO that shows up or whatever. Exactly. It's just this thing. And like, well, what is it? It's prime numbers. It's prime numbers.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
wow. Yeah. And that brings us to like one of the greatest parts, because it's just this like, what is happening? It's the image reveal, right? It's in both of the book and the movie. I can't quite remember how it goes in the book, but in the movie, it's the Kent character. He's like, there's something else here besides the prime numbers. There's something like underneath it. It might, and he describes it in a way of like, I don't know, it's the particular gigahertz or something of where the frequency is. And someone's like, get a monitor.
Yeah, exactly.
Plug it into a monitor because it's going to be an actual image. And then what is the image? You guys like, it's just like, oh,
and how
shit.
How crazy is that to know that was the very first thing that humanity broadcast out to the stars.
Right. Again, just the genius of it. I mean, I can appreciate that some people may have seen that coming. Okay, so for anybody who might be listening who hasn't seen the movie, this thing we're tiptoeing around, it's an image of a swastika. It's like the first, as soon as they're like tweaking it and kind of getting it to clear up, it's like, that's a fucking swastika. Like, what the fuck is that doing, right? It's very like, holy shit. Even the James Woods character is like, oh, okay, and he's like, but the beauty of Sagan's writing is it's a real thing. Germany, it ends up being like the opening uh, Hitler like opening the Olympics, 1936, maybe Olympics in Berlin, and it was this thing where they were like kind of proud to demonstrate their broadcasting superiority or whatever, the technology that they could broadcast stuff, and it was the first, right, the first thing that actually kind of broadcast out into space.
Yep.
Yes. Here's the beauty, in my opinion, of it, other than the shock value, which was just happenstance, was
Mhm.
this explains one of the great plot questions, which is why now? And so the component of this,
Exactly.
the setting of it, the date and time, was reflective of the speed of light and the distance to the object that he chose, which
Yep.
was such a great genius level setup to
Yep.
the point. Right, it gives you every explanation
Right.
that gets your what do you want, suspension of disbelief. It
Yes.
gives you an
Yes.
opportunity, right? This is the first time humans ever, because why would anybody contact us? Well,
Yeah.
only if we contact them first
First.
inadvertently,
Yeah.
right?
Hey, we heard you. We're here.
Yeah,
What's up?
it's someone who's
So
capable
beautiful.
of yeah, it's such a great idea.
Yeah. The back to the what I was talking about with my wife. It's so non-sci-fi. It's so believable. Like you said, Bob, you don't really have to suspend disbelief in this moment just to because it's a movie and enjoy it and like, wow, this seems so plausible.
It does. Yeah, he keyed on literally I think the first person that ever did this was, hey, if we pick a star, 26 light years away or whatever, that would build just enough time for us to get the signal there and then back again for us to have the story pick up right now. And that, I think, it's just next level.
Totally.
Yep.
And then
Totally.
it dovetails nicely into what you're talking about, John, where the signal is like this thumping sound or this dots and dashes, right? It gives you like a quiet period and a weird mechanical crunching sound or whatever you want to call this
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then it does it in pulses, right? It goes in pulses. So it starts doing 2, 3, 5, 7, whatever, 9, 11. I can't remember, or not. Nine's not prime, obviously, but it
Yeah.
starts going through the primes. But here's the thing: it's like on, off, on, off, on, off. But what's really there is a signal in the signal. And that is my definition
Yeah.
of beauty. Okay. My
Yeah.
definition of beauty is signal in signal. And the deeper you go, the more beautiful and awe-inspiring it is to us humans who perceive this as meaningful. Like maybe
Right.
AI doesn't see meaning in signal and signal, but I sure do. Like
Yeah.
maybe my dog doesn't look up at the rainbow and wonder, oh, how is that virtual image created? But I sure do.
Yeah.
There's this level of like perception that Sagan taps into in the story itself. That signal in signal is the key.
Yeah. Dude, I have to share this quick. It'll be quick. My experience with what you just said about like, does AI pick up this? Like, uh, probably not as in the same way that humans do, but I think there's something there. And the reason I say that is, do you guys know the song by M83 called Outro?
Can't say I do.
No, not me.
It's really, really, really great. It's really just got a great like triumphant sound to it. And there's only like 4 or 5 lines of lyrics in it. But to me, the lyrics are, it's where the wild things are. It's about that character Max when he kind of realizes he's the king of his own like imagination and stuff. The lyrics are very in a I think subtle way, like talking about that. And so we asked ChatGPT, like, what do you think this song is about? And I had to prod it a little bit. I had to prod it and say, like, I kind of thought it, was similar to Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. And and its response was like, yeah, I think it said, I can see that. It's like, that makes sense. I can see that. And the thing that sealed it that was so gnarly to me is the last sentence. It was like, it is really cool when we can find meaning in things. It said we. I was like, dude, this is fucking creepy and cool and like, wow, So again, it's, I I think it's early stages, right? Like, I'm not convinced that AI is like
Well,
sentient by
let me
any means, but
clarify.
like, these are
Let me
those first moments. It's kind of starting to happen. It knows how to like talk that way.
well let me clarify just one level deeper because I think this is an important distinction. When I talk about the beauty of a thing, what I mean is the feeling of it, meaning that that feeling of when you see a beautiful thing and it makes you cry, it's not because your knowledge of the thing, man. It's the way it feels to see that thing. And that's what I'm talking about. This now, maybe someday they can put, silicon and carbon and together and make a squishy mechanical thing. Who knows? I don't know what can be done and what cannot. And I'm not saying either is impossible. I'm just saying right now the language, like an LLM is doing math. It has no understanding of what it's saying. It's just spitting out.
Probability machine. Yep.
Yeah, man, it's just spitting out what the most likely next word is based on training. So it knows nothing. It knows, it does not have an understanding of what it, even though it's trained to say we, and I love it, I get goosebumps. It does not. Okay, it does not.
Yeah,
get
it doesn't
goosebumps.
feel
it
the
doesn't
way that a human
feel.
feels.
So what I'm getting at is the beauty of signal and signal acquisition is evolutionary. It is a fitness. It is pattern seeking that humans have that gave us a fitness above our competitors. And having an imagination allows us to use this pattern recognition as a creative aspect. So it allows us to create and consume ourselves. And it's like a self-training model. So we're allowed to train ourselves with what we see, and then we get to play what if games, without harm. And we can feel good when we see a pattern and our mirror neurons, make us put ourselves in their position. Like, why are things on TV so addictively persuasive? Because it makes you feel. How does something on TV make you feel? It's because we have the ability to empathize and sympathize with other theories of mind, right? We have a theory that your mind is like my mind. Yeah. So I can put myself in your position and consume a visualization of a thing, and I feel it like it's real. That's the other side of the coin, which is our ability to learn and be human is gameable by an unconscious mathematical process, essentially, which is this algorithm, or the generative AI is literally unconscious math. And it's able to control us in a certain extent, right? To a certain narrow field of definition. Humans can be controlled and made to behave according to an algorithm. And so I'm saying there is a chance out there. And that's what I think, Sagan is playing with all the different characters. He's not looking at it one way. He's looking at it multifacetedly in the moment itself. I love this, right? You have all these different people, especially, by the way, I'm going to throw a big check plus to this Drummond guy who comes in, and he was skeptical all along. And I know he's a bastard and he takes credit, but he also helps. Yeah. Like when he comes in and reverses his position and starts advocating for the science of the thing in the beginning, it's so uplifting. Yeah. In that you could think, hey man, how are we ever going to unify? How is Israel and Palestine ever going to get along? How's Russia and Ukraine? Well, you know what? It's impossible. Well, fuck you. It's not impossible. We're going to make it happen. We're going to show you things can happen that will reverse what you think is literally impossible, which is Ellie and Drummond getting on the same page. Right. And they did. When did they do it? When they had to solve a problem. Yeah.
Yeah. Well said, dude. I fucking love all that. I think it's like really spot on, the whole signal metaphor.
I've been waiting on that one. I love that story.
Yeah. Well, and I know John and I have had this conversation just in private, but it's like, I think both of us kind of feel like as we've aged, we've become more emotional and more empathetic. Yeah. And I think that's, to me, that's the natural course of aging. And it's because you have a bigger data set of life experiences to pull on that you can relate to more. You are more empathetic because you've experienced more. And I have to wonder, like, can AI ever get to that point? Because it doesn't actually experience things the way we do. Like, it can never experience the loss of a loved one. Like, that changes you. That fundamentally changes you as a person. It will never experience that. It can read about it, but it has no emotional connection to that event. And so I don't know how it would ever get to that point where it's just as human as humans. I
Yeah.
kind of don't see that happening. It's just the way we're built as an organic creature that has to live and die. I don't know that an AI would ever get
I would
to the
bring up
same level of empathy or understanding that we have.
bring
Well,
up.
I just got.
Sorry, John. Go ahead.
It's the Have you heard of the movie The Creator? I won't go deep into it, but that's one story of exactly what you're talking about, Tucker. It's really good. It came out last year too. The Creator. Put that on your list. It addresses that, and plus what Bob, when you were talking about maybe silicone and things could be, but would it really recreate what it is to feel like a human? Check out The Creator. It's really well done.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
I like that
Anyway.
tip. Well, maybe I was going to go the same direction in another movie as a metaphor for this conversation, which was Ex Machina. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So it's kind of like dances on the edge of maybe this thing doesn't feel, but it's like smart enough to play you. Like it figured you out. Like imagine something like as a singularity moment of AI, meaning it becomes self-aware, but maybe it doesn't feel like we do, but it's self-aware and it is smart. Like we're not smart, like it's thousands, like orders of magnitude smart. And it's just smart enough to like play us as if we are dogs or whatever. Like, it's just so easy. Like if you're that smart and if you're self-aware, maybe you don't need the feeling component. And they don't go into Ex Machina how he created this thing, but that is the concept of like we could kill beauty in effect by becoming technologically avarice. And this goes back to the thing about what Sagan puts in the book about where are all the aliens? Well, the ones that go out there seeking expansion. I can't remember how he put it exactly, but they die out. Right? What was that line? We're talking about the ones that are that die out.
I think it was more, those that
Aggressive.
seek, aggressive. They
Yeah.
seek to dominate the environment, end up being victims of their own domination. I don't think it's worded exactly that way, but I think that was
I
kind
think
of
it's
the intent.
it's pretty. It's kind of generic. I think it's just the aggressive ones are the ones that usually destroy themselves or something. Like I think the word aggressive is in there, and it's kind of
I
vague.
guess my aggression concept would overlay as a replacement, meaning like if we can go back to Haddon, like if we can eliminate. Let's play this out, by the way. I think they do in the book. So you've got TVs that turn up the volume when the commercials come on and piss everybody off. Everybody hates commercials anyway. Why you got to turn it up? So he makes this thing so when the volume gets turned down when the commercial comes on, right? But what if the commercials are what pay for the TV shows?
Yeah.
So what happens next is you get this arms race and it becomes kind of disruptive and destructive. And it becomes like not all candy and clouds and puppy dogs and sweet stuff. It's like it really becomes an adversarial thing to evolve. It becomes like a fight. It's not law of the jungle anymore. But so you end up with like one person who wants to cut out the commercials, but that's how the other person makes a living. Anyway, the point being, as you progress, you might aggressively bring up something that is smarter than you and just doesn't feel anything that you feel, doesn't look at the world the way you look at the world. And evolution, like what percentage of all the species that have ever lived are still alive? It's like less than one. These things go extinct all the time. That's kind of the nature of the beast.
Well, and think about it, in the book, it goes eventually beyond ad blocking, where he creates one that blocks religious content.
Oh, right.
On
I
one
remember
hand,
that now. Yeah.
you can look at that and go, well, that's great. I don't have to listen to this bullshit. But on the other hand, if you're not seeing what the other side's doing, there could be a whole movement to, say, ban women's birth control.
No kidding.
You blocked their whole side of the conversation from your consumption. So you don't even know this is going on. You don't even know this is a fight. You don't even know that you should be organizing to protect your rights because you've blocked that out. And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's on a ballot and it passes. And you're like, how the hell did that happen? Well, because you blocked out what the people you don't agree with are saying. You're not listening to what they're saying, so you don't know what they're even trying to do to you.
Right. Go back to like the evolutionary thing. I think it's starting to, well, okay, in my experience, I gotta try to remember, like, I have these tendencies to just like say things, and then I realize, like, well, of course I'm saying that. It's like my experience. Like, I don't know that this is like true about everybody, right? But I work for a company, and one of their kind of slogans is celebrate disagreement. And it makes so much sense to me. Like, I think this is kind of happening in this part of our evolution, that we don't have to be fearful just because something is different anymore, right? Like, we don't have to just shy away from disagreement. In fact, we're probably all better off if we don't, right? If we embrace that we don't all agree on things, that there are just fundamental differences. We don't all have to be the same, have the same mindset about XYZ.
I'm gonna say, what if, I'm just gonna throw a what if, like, what if that is correct, but the edge case is you're in a lifeboat and you have 50 people in the water all swimming at you. You got 12 in the lifeboat. It holds 8. Like, there is going to come a point where we can't all just disagree. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, if you're in that
trolley
lifeboat,
problem. Yeah.
Thank you, trolley. Yeah, exactly. Trolley problem. Okay, so there are edge cases that come about.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with those when it's like, oh, everybody, it's
when
live
it's
and let
literally
live. Live and let live.
when
But
it's
what if
literally
you're,
like your survival that we're talking about. Sure. Yeah.
well, yeah, because you know what? Live and let live works until it don't. And then you
Mhm.
know what? All the things that we talk about that are
Sure.
laws and your rights and all that, we all know that those are made up, right? Like, they don't literally exist.
Right. We all agreed. It's like the value of money. We all agreed that it's,
Correct.
as soon
Just
as
like
we all
money.
change our mind, like, it's useless and worthless,
Ex-
right?
So exactly it. Once you're on the desert island, I have bottles of water and you have stacks of $1 billion bills. Who's richer? I'm the
Right.
richer, right? I'm
Right.
gonna dance on your desiccated corpse and take your money after you've died because
We're
you
gonna,
can't.
the money is gonna be used to, as kindling. That's
Yeah,
how it's
exactly.
useful.
Yeah. Nobody
We need it
cares.
to make fire.
The water is the thing. Okay, so we all agree on this. I guess my point is, it's all fun and games until you end up in a civil war or some shit like that,
Yeah.
and then it becomes like, what really happened? So I'm not disagreeing.
Yeah.
It's as a slogan.
But
it
you
really,
can,
and by the way, it is
disagree. But that,
powerful.
to my point, like, yeah, it's great. Even if you can disagree with that. It's the whole point. it's
So
okay.
this whole conversation takes me back to the map maker, right?
Yep.
So as we've discussed, you've got the map maker, you've got the map reader, you've got the follower, you've got the broker. I think you need to add a 5th one, and that's the executioner. And
Oh, wow.
that's the person who does the hard work when either the broker or the map reader has lost their mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
It's the impossible
think-
mission force.
Yeah.
well, here,
Impossible.
to your point, I'll give you the crystalline version of your point, Tucker, which is when the team breaks down, you evolve into executioners. Okay, the team is a thing that is not real, meaning law of the jungle would not make this work, because you don't care about who's got a map, and I kill you now and you're dead and you're not gonna fuck with me. That's all that matters. Literally,
Yep.
That's it. Like, if I see you in the jungle, you're never gonna help me. You're never gonna make a map for me. You're never gonna follow me. All you're gonna do is kill me or my family sometime in the future. And if I see you before you see me, you're fucking dead.
Yep.
You're fucking dead. So that's the executioner. You are 100% right. But that happens at the breakdown of the team. Once we get to the team, we're lost in the woods. This one guy went through Boy Scouts and he's a fucking Eagle Scout and he's got a compass. We're all going to shut up, give him the map. Whatever he says, we're going to do it. And if you don't like it, you get left behind. That's it. That's what it comes down to. And that's a team. Okay. The difference between the team and the executioner is humanity. I mean, that's literally animal
Yeah.
like a pack of fucking wolves can be executioners. Okay, pack of fucking wolves will turn on each other, or they'll turn on the prey or whatever, but they don't really have a hierarchy of the team past this moment in time. And what I'm saying is humans have evolved the concept of we're all better off as cooperative, because we're so dangerous, by the way. We are the most dangerous thing. The only thing that's really dangerous to us on this planet right now is us. Very few people are in an area. I mean, I'm sure it does happen. Obviously, mosquitoes and malaria and fucking, grizzly bears and shit. But seriously though, the most dangerous thing on this planet is us.
Yeah, apex predator kind of thing, right?
We are our own apex predator.
Yeah.
And so it becomes 100% all about tamping down the law of the jungle and promoting up this team mechanism, more to the point, identifying the team that it's like it happens whether you like it or not is my point. It's already baked in. This is how we've evolved. Nobody's on their own. Nobody brings up their own language. Nobody invents math. Nobody invents clothing and haircuts and penicillin and all that shit. It's all given to us. And then every once in a while, there's some exception to the rule. They add a little bit to the global understanding of what it means to be on this planet, and then they die. But we keep this information. We keep it and we move forward with culture. Culture survives the individual death, and it is the big fitness. It's the big adaptation. So we move past all the other animals, even though like a hippo is terrifying. Like there ain't no human or 10 humans have ever lived that could hand to hand take out a hippo. But yet here we are. We're the ones with satellites. Hippos have no satellites.
Yeah, right. Kim and I talked about this kind of same thing like a while ago, and that topic of like apex predator camp. And what had occurred to me is like, yeah, what does exist like, above us that we kind of are at the mercy of it. There's nothing we can really do, and it's the weather. Like there really isn't much we can do to like control. I mean, I think there's the whole like thing about the HAARP machine, HAARP, where it was. I didn't look into it too much, but there was a band called the HAARP machine, and that kind of provoked me into looking into it a little bit. But it was the idea of like trying to control weather, and maybe I think it was a real thing, but I don't know how far it actually got. But aside from that, yeah, like we're really at the mercy,
But we have the freedom of mobility. So if you evolve on top of a mountain, you don't have to stay there.
Sure, yeah. Hurricanes, right? You don't have to, and people do, right? I mean, Hurricane Katrina came and wiped out a lot of New Orleans, and it was like
people are not, without means. I'm just saying, like, we have the technical ability in a theoretical standpoint to move around the planet and not be where we like. But
it's more like running away from it versus like, well, we're going to actually like stop the hurricane in its tracks because we're the apex predator and it's subservient to us.
Yeah,
well,
what I mean?
Yeah. The
look at it this way too, though. Like, eventually, we as a species are going to have to tell whole groups of people, like, hey, you can't rebuild your city in this part of Florida. This is the 6th time, and nobody in the country can afford homeowners insurance anymore because you won't fucking leave.
Or like companies like pull out, like we're just not gonna, you can live there, but we're not gonna,
next time
that house,
that house blows down, you have to pay for it. Like, at some point, those decisions have to be made, and it's that point's coming soon.
Yeah, and earthquakes and stuff. Like, I remember Kim looked into the San Francisco earthquake. Was it like the early 1900s? And they built a lot of San Francisco on the water. Like, I mean, there was a lot of, I think, good reasons to think, an earthquake is just gonna like, I guess you take that to the extreme. It's tool. What is enema, right? I'll see you out in Arizona Bay or what, but we do things anyway.
We're stubborn, if not anything.
I'm gonna do just like quick like time check because it is getting to about 90 minutes. I mean, you guys, we can't help ourselves. It's like there's so much to talk about. We only went through a little bit of the movie.
Hey, small moves.
Small moves. Amen to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I do want to do like a whole deep dive on the math itself as we get, so not this episode, but once he gets it, once in the book, by the way, I'm so happy. I want to thank you, John, and thank you, Tucker, and any universal powers that allowed us to have this idea to open up this book. Oh my goodness, what a great mind Sagan had to pull out all
Totally.
the mathematical stuff in this part of the book where he's describing not just the primes and stuff, but he goes into pi and all kinds of
hydrogen times pi. I told
There you go,
it's
brother.
like the lyric from the line from the movie. Yeah, she goes hydrogen times pi. Yes, so that's what. Go ahead.
So and then as it progresses, obviously into spoiler alert, how do we find you? How is it's a mathematical game that right? These guys found this is an ancient, like the aliens are not the ones who made it. They are reading shit that was made far before them.
Yeah.
How did they learn about it? Well, they calculated pi to some trillionth point or whatever, right? And all of a sudden a signal came through it. All this beauty, man, is crazy shit. I think that is the most beautiful sci-fi I have ever read, honestly. When he talks about the concept of some great universal creator, the one who made the laws of physics themselves, embedded in the mathematics of this calculation, a signal. I don't think it gets better than that. I just say that right now. It just does not get better than that.
Yeah. Why don't we plan to start the next one, part 3? We'll start with that deep dive. Is that cool? Like you said, kind of want to do a deep dive on the. I mean, I know for sure you have stuff to say about the actual math. I mean, I know it won't be like deep, but because I texted you guys, I was like, when this line in the movie, like, what does that mean to you? And you were like, here's exactly what it means. It was great. So yeah, I've been looking forward to like hearing you say that. So that would be a good place to probably pick up part 3. And then
so I just want to say one thing before we wrap this up. Like, I think Carl Sagan's biggest achievement was as an educator, even more so than as a scientist. I think that is his ability to make these topics interesting to the layperson.
Yeah, I love it.
I think it's beautiful that he succeeded to an extent that here it is 27 years later since that movie came out. 3 people are, by the time we're done, we're going to have 20 hours of conversation on this book.
Right.
And that's what he wanted. That was his goal, was to get
like the
people
Johnny
excited
Appleseed
about this stuff.
Yeah, Johnny Appleseed of imagination. He literally planted these little seeds.
Dude, did you just come up with that, Bob?
Yeah,
He was the Johnny Appleseed of imagination.
Yeah, but because Tucker, what he's saying, I think is 100% right. That
totally.
I see Sagan as the Johnny Appleseed. I see because guess what? Back to our original conversations, John. The story is what brings you in. The story's the thing, right? It's the play's the thing. This is Shakespeare. The play's the thing, meaning humans don't learn from the fact itself. They learn from the narrative that incorporates the fact into the story.
Yeah, exactly.
At a fundamental level, guys, at a fundamental level, my point is, Tucker, I think you're exactly right. This will live on. The legend of his story will live on for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
The amount of work, the amount of literal work will be done because of this man's image, this man's creativity, his thought-provoking ideas are limitless, literally limitless.
That's what immortality is.
Correct, that is immortality.
We were alive in the same era as him, so it's easy to go, well, yeah, I see how we got interested in it, but like I said, my 15-year-old nephew just finished Cosmos, and he's like, you can tell it changed him.
Awesome.
You can tell like that spark was lit, like he gets it. And so it's now I have somebody 25 years my junior who's going to carry that torch.
But the beauty is, to your point, Tucker, it's not just that people get off on reading a good story or watching a good movie. It's that more work will be done through inspiring others who then take on the same work Sagan would have done, right? If he would have tried to work as an individual, and do nothing but sit in a lab and watch a telescope and whatever he would have done that, he had credentials for, etc., pales in comparison to the literal work that will be done
because of him.
Because of him, thousands of millions of inspired people. That is power. That is real power right there.
Yeah. And isn't it great how the movie ends with Ellie is educating the next generation? These young kids are asking about,
Yes.
and then the lines
so
come back. Spoiler alert. We'll go over that again. But yeah, so good.
Good point,
So,
John.
And
good.
Sagan's protege in several ways was Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Right.
And I don't think he's as effective a communicator necessarily as Sagan was. I don't
He's
think,
effective in his own way. I mean,
in his
there's a
own way. I
difference
think
there.
he comes across with an arrogance that turns some people off.
Yeah. I can get that for
but
sure.
You have to look at what he's accomplished because of Sagan.
Right.
He picked up that torch and he's done great work as
Yeah.
an educator,
Right.
keeping that alive.
It's not like he was
almost-
going to be like, I'm going to be Carl Sagan version 2, right? He's
No.
like, I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson. This is me
Yeah.
doing my thing.
Yeah.
I
Totally.
see it though as in agreement with everything you said, but in addition to, do you guys remember the TV show MASH?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And there was a finale episode and like 30% of the country tuned in or some shit, right? Some insane number that will never ever be reached of market share as a common experience. What I'm saying is Neil deGrasse Tyson, anybody today has so many different competitive signals in the marketplace. I just don't think it's possible for anyone to unify like Sagan did. When he came out, he was on the uptake level of broadcast. Like he had PBS and the book and the movie, right? He was interviewed umpteen times. He was a cultural influencer before that was a term.
Yeah.
I think
Good point.
he's good. I really think, looking back on this, now you bring this up, like the fact that his educational component is going to be the thing. Like it's like living through the time of Mozart. I mean, it's literally like that.
Totally.
I mean, just how many years was Mozart? That was like 400 years ago.
Yeah.
And we still awe at him, but we are here now with Sagan now, where he was when we were kids. Now we are literally the ones now to have experienced this. Like this could be a big thing. I really do think that.
Yeah. Kind of reminds me, Tucker, you have to correct me if I'm wrong here, but so Tucker plays in a band called Tree of Woe, and their original singer, his name's Chris Forsyth. He passed away a few years ago. Shit, man, was it more than 5 years ago now?
I think it's more than that. It's been a while.
Wow. But I think somebody in tribute, like on Facebook or whatever, mentioned that Chris would say things like, nobody's going to live forever, so try to create something that will. Does that sound right? That Chris said stuff like that?
Yeah. He said that life is all about stories, and you have to live a life that leaves those stories behind.
Yeah. Yeah, same kind of thing. Just reminded me, like, this kind of idea about immortality,
real quick shout out. I don't know. I think, John, I passed this on to you, perhaps not to Tucker. It's called Heavy Feathers. And at the end of that song, I can't remember the name of the guy. I'm embarrassed right now. Heavy Feathers, not a big popular song, but anyway, it's at the end, the guy's talking about his song will be carried. I don't know. Do you remember this, John? Like at the end of the song, he's talking about his song
I'm looking
will be
it
carried
up.
on. So there's
John Charles Dwyer. Does that sound right? John Charles Dwyer. Yeah.
That's it. Dwyer. John. Yeah, Dwyer. That's it. And call out to this guy, genius, by the way. His songwriting is next level shit. But at the end of his song, he's talking about, we all kind of walk off into the sunset, so to speak. We all walk it, and he's going to be, light to carry. He's just a tune, but the tune's going to carry on though, and that is so true. His tune will carry on forever, man. And I think it joins the universal tune of what we call culture, in history. And that's really the take-home thing is Sagan's impact to culture makes him immortal. He's such a contributor. He's at that, level of you'll know about this man for 500 years or something. Or
Yeah.
like I was thinking before, like, you know, the Iliad or the Odyssey or something like that. One of these greats that are just forever in the culture now because they're always going to be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, okay, we all remember Newton because of his laws, right? Sagan will be remembered for being the person that made us care about those laws.
Yeah,
You know?
well said. I like it.
Yes. 10-4 on that.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. That seems like as good a place to end as any.
Yeah, that's a good cherry on top. I like that.
Yeah. Well, kick ass. Thank you again, both of you. This was like so fun. I can't wait to keep this going. We should take predictions. I was sure we all said like it would be more than 2 parts. I thought maybe 3, but now I'm thinking like
5 parts.
at least 4 or 5.
Yeah, at least 4, maybe 5.
4 or 5. Yeah. So it'll be fun
the
to
speed we're moving.
right. Yeah. So that's the prediction on this February 4th.
I think the over-under is like 4.5 parts at this point.
Yeah,
We're at
that's
the
what you
4.5
go.
part. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Over under 4.5. Yeah.
And
Right.
that depends on entirely on what we all as individuals read in between these episodes, because
Yeah, exactly.
that can definitely stir tangents,
Right.
as we're prone to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's what
Can't
makes,
wait.
It's what makes it beautiful, though. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
That's
I love
the
it.
joy of it.
Yeah.
Journey, not the destination, guys.
Yep. So thank you, anybody that's listening, for joining us. We love talking about this. So, you know what I remembered last time after we stopped, there was some quote. I might have to try to pull it up because it seemed like it'd be a good like closer, right? Let me. It was a Bartlett's quote. Seems like it's worth trying. If I can pull it up here,
You look
might be
for it,
too
John.
far back. I got it.
I'll mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sendingpoets@gmail.com, right?
Yes,
for
thank
our
you.
Fan mail.
Yes.
Be
If
careful.
you have any.
Google can only hold so many emails. So be careful. Just one per listener per day, please.
Right. Yeah. I know we all have day jobs, so there's only so much time we can devote in between.
Sorry.
Oh man,
Yeah.
no, it's great. So yeah, so we'll finish here with this nice quote from John Quincy Adams from 1781. You will never be alone with a poet in your pocket.
Beautiful.
Cheers.